Okay, it looks like Haley's all set to start, so I'm going to introduce her. Um, Haley is the internship program manager at Uber, and we're super excited for her to be joining us today. She builds and delivers the end-to-end internship experience and engagement programming for global intern population. And prior to Uber, she worked at San Francisco Unified School District and helped develop the K through 12 out of school time programming and youth employment opportunities for students across the city of San Francisco. She has a background in education and early career development and is very passionate about elevating the next generation of diverse talent to their highest potential. She is a lifelong Golden State Warriors fan, go Dubs, and as an avid home baker, I'm sure she can tell us all about her baking during COVID. I know a lot of us have been trying that out these days. So thank you so much to Haley for being here, and I am going to go off of video now. And just a reminder, please use the chat function and Q&A function. We will be monitoring that for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mindy, and welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your Friday to join me. And thank you for kicking off in chat just a little bit while I prepared my screen and all of my materials to share with you. I'm thrilled to have all of you on the call and thrilled to get to know all of you a little bit more as we go through this next about 50 minutes together, really help you to prepare for interviewing and for your job search and just to navigate this virtual experience together. I have to say, as we've been at this since March, and it's been a little wild. It's been weird, and it's definitely something that we're all still getting used to. So definitely something that I like to bring into all of my sessions with the interns that I support at Uber, with my teammates, and now I'll share this with all of you, is that we're really here to embrace the experiment together. And that's something that I want you all to take home with you or take into your job search and journey, is that this particular time especially is an experiment, as is the job search. And so there's going to be times that we fail. There are internet connectivity issues that come up occasionally. Sometimes we live with siblings, we live with parents, we have a cat walk across our screen. So there's something definitely about this journey, but we're all everyone understands that this is an experiment, this is new, and this is something that if you embrace that experiment and just know that some of these things are going to come up, it definitely makes you a more relatable and makes you more, it's something that we all share in this virtual human experience. With that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that in the interest of time, we'll get right into the content. But I'll take a pause after all of the different sections just so that we can answer any questions live. Because we do have a smaller audience today, I am more than happy to answer questions as I go through content. So if you're comfortable to hop off mute and you want to interrupt me, feel free. We're all now a community together. But if you would like to pop questions in chat, I will keep my eye on that and I'll answer them as we take breaks in between our sections. And I'll leave plenty of time at the end to answer any questions that you may have too. In addition to what I'm going to share with you, I also have some additional resources that I'll be plugging into the Jumpstart portal. I had a little bit issues uploading today, but I'll make sure that those are in Mindy's hands so that they can be shared with all of you and with the larger Mesa community as well. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Let me quickly share. All right. So the title of our session today, as you may have seen on our on the Jumpstart portal, is Navigating the Virtual Job Search and Interview Experience. And Minnie did a great job of introducing me, but I wanted to just get to know you a little bit more and get to know each other. So I was born and raised in the Bay Area. My name is Haley, by the way. Mindy shared that, but I'll share it too. I live in San Francisco currently, but am born and raised in the Bay Area and been here most of my life. Like Mindy said, I am an avid Bay Area sports fan. Love the Golden State Warriors through tough times and our most recent championship runs. And I really, truly can't wait to be back in person and to attend a future game again one day. As Mindy mentioned, I'm the internship program manager at Uber, which means that I'm in charge of building and developing the entire internship experience for all the interns we host here at Uber. And so this ranges from being in charge of our interns' learning experiences and professional development to teaming up with our managers and teams to help them with best practices to host our interns, and involve them with projects to help them make an impact here while they're here at Uber and interning and learning along the way. And it's also part of my responsibility to help our interns make lasting connections, build their social experience, network, and then of course have fun along the journey. And on the left of this slide is a snapshot from one of our virtual events where I learned a new skill that I have this summer, and that I'm pretty good at DJing a virtual webinar. So if any of you have the opportunity to come and intern with us at any time during your experience with Uber, you may get to know me as how they lovingly named me, DJ Wumbo. I don't know what that means. I heard it's a SpongeBob reference. I heard it's and it stands for, it's like just the opposite is mini. But it's a really great time. And again, this was definitely an example of embracing the experiment, embracing the process, and having fun along the journey. My timeline of my journey to Uber is on the bottom of the slide, starting from my graduation from UC Davis, highlighting my work with SFUSD, and then I hopped over to the tech, or like to the whole tech world, starting off with Stitch Fix before finding my home at Uber in 2019. But that's enough about me. We got to get to know you a little bit in chat, but I would love to get to know you just like a little bit more with one more fun activity. So we'll skip the first two chat waterfall questions because you've already answered them while I was preparing my deck. But I would love for everyone to just on a scale of 1 to 5, just so that we can get a baseline of how people are feeling on this call today. On a scale of 1 to 5, how confident do you feel about the job search or interviewing while we're in this virtual environment? And if you don't feel comfortable responding, that's okay. But remember, there are no judgments here and we're all a community now. So go ahead and pop into chat on a scale of 1 through 5, how you're feeling. If you had an interview tomorrow, granted, you've done a little bit of company research, how would you feel? 2, almost 3. Love it. Thank you, Karishma, for being first and most brave to pop up. You can also, if you don't feel comfortable responding to the larger chat, you can just respond to me as the panelist, and only Mindy and I will see it, and we won't share your answers. I won't share them out. Thanks for kicking that off, Karishma, though, and I shared yours out, but you were brave. Awesome. So seeing a couple more responses. Thank you all for being vulnerable and for sharing that rating. I'll give you about 10 more seconds if anyone else wants to pop in a number. Also, if you want to type in, if you've already given me your answer, thank you. If you've already given me an answer and you want to provide your favorite song, give it to me. I love to take session favorite songs and bake them into my playlists. Awesome. So I'm seeing some confidence levels. Awesome. All right. So I'll go ahead and wrap that up. Thank you for those of you that responded and shared that with me. It looks like we're all hovering right in the middle of this scale, which is what I expected. And so from here, I'm hoping at the end of today's journey that we'll be able to at least bump you up one number, if not more. And then once we're able to share the resources out, that you can take these and work with them and really bump your confidence up so that you'll be ready to rock once that next virtual interview comes. So just a quick overview of our agenda before we get going. Today, I'm going to share with you our learning goals, so sort of what this, what you can anticipate and expect out of our next, 40 minutes or so together, how to kick off your job search, especially while virtual. It does look similar to that in-person experience, but there's so much information that we want to make sure that you know the best ways and tips and tricks on where to begin. Next up, I'm going to help you build up your interview toolkit with a couple of different practices that are really great so that you can come into an interview already prepared with situations, with different things that you've practiced to really shine during that experience. Next, I'll give you lots of tips and tricks for setting up for virtual success. So obviously we're interviewing from a 12 to 14-inch screen right now, as opposed to in person. So there are some differences that you'll want to practice and prepare for so that you can do your best and feel your best while you're interviewing. And then of course, I'm going to give you some great tips and tricks to practice, practice, practice. That is the one thing, if you don't take anything else away from today, is that practicing for your interview is the most important way to help you feel prepared, confident, and ready to succeed. And that shows off whether you're in person or virtual. So definitely want you to be able to take that away. And then we'll save tons of time for questions at the end. So our quick learning goals, so we can overview. 1, we'll identify where to start that job search. 2, going to build out that interview toolkit with some new skills and best practices to help you work that will translate from virtual to in-person interviews once we're back, back in offices and back in person. And this is anything from an interview to just even a chat with a recruiter, things that will really help elevate you in your journey, in your job searches. Next, it's setting up our third learning goal will be setting up your virtual environment for success, whether that's an interview all the way through your first day on the job. And then 4, help you name some strategies to build up your confidence while preparing for your next interview. And you'll walk away with some of those today and new tools to practice with. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So starting off the job search, so where should you look? There are a ton of resources. There are a ton of places. The internet, of course, is saturated with where should you be looking for a job? What sort of content should you be looking for? So obviously I have to call out Jumpstart because that's the platform we're on right now. And it is a great way to not only chat with recruiters, it's also a great way for you to be able to look at jobs that are available. And this is a really unique platform that is available to you through Mesa. Of course, LinkedIn is going to be a wonderful place that has really current up-to-date information about your job search. Your universities and college career resource centers have tons of postings and often work really closely with companies that are hiring to have unique postings that sometimes go available before the company will post them publicly or before they'll post on websites like Indeed or like on LinkedIn. So definitely having that in and utilizing your college and your resources in your community are a great way to get the jump on some postings. And then finally, of course, the company websites themselves. If you have a couple of companies that you're really interested in, definitely check their career pages because oftentimes that's where they're going to go live first. And so keep those places in mind and check back often. And there's oftentimes that you can set job alerts through a quick Google function search or through the actual career page itself if they have a really fancy souped up career page so that you have the very, very first access to new postings when they're live. Of course, what do you pay attention to? So pay attention to the company websites and blog posts and just content that are about the different companies as you begin your search and as you start to pick up the different things that you're looking for, the different opportunities that you may be applying for. There's lots of infinite wisdom that exists on the internet about these different companies and about information that you can continue to learn about the company and learn if it might be the right fit for you as you apply. Things just like company culture or what their values are, what they stand for, or different employee testimonials or experiences will really be great tools to help you align and help you eliminate some of the jobs that may be exciting, but may not be the right fit for you. And it'll really help you hone in and focus on the jobs that you do want to apply for. And then of course, a quick Google search again for news articles. Those are really great things to pay attention to as well, or even just things like TechCrunch. Because this will help you understand what's going on the pulse of the company, what the current priorities and projects are, and it'll help equip you with different information to ask in different questions, have different questions as in your toolkit as you prepare for your interview. What are your resources? The job description itself, I cannot say this more enough. As a recruiter and as someone who's here to help you, I may, you may have heard this before, but if not, I want to make sure that you know this. Job descriptions are written with very, very particular key terms within them to help recruiters look for who meets those criteria and who meets those skill sets. So the job description itself is going to be really important, not only in how you write a resume or a cover letter, but how you speak about the, the different things that you are qualified to do, because those keywords should be the things that you are able to showcase that you're able to do. So definitely look for keywords and look for keywords that align to what your skill sets are. Next, of course, the company website. I said it before, I say it again. LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Crunchbase, simple Google searches are great resources for you to help build your pool of knowledge about different jobs and about different companies. And then finally, your recruiter. So once you get your foot in the door, your recruiter, or that first point of contact when you go to schedule, or when you have an interview, or when they schedule you for a quick recruiter phone call, your recruiter is your keys to the kingdom, as we like to say. They are your guide, they're your support system, and it is their primary function and job to make sure that they are preparing their candidates and preparing you for your job, your candidate experience in your interview process. So no questions are off the table with a recruiter. You can ask anything from, do you like your job, all the way down through, what should I wear on my very first, on my first day or for my interview? What is the company dress code? These are all really, really important. They're your important resources, and they're going to either, if they have an answer for your question, they're most likely going to answer it. And if they don't, they're going to find the right person to answer it. But there are no questions that are off the table. And then finally, how do you make a recruiting connection? I think while we're virtual, it's a little bit different. There aren't recruiters coming to our campuses anymore. There aren't career fairs happening so much. They're more virtual. So you definitely we encourage you all to become active on LinkedIn and on the platforms like Jumpstart or on, other career portals, because these are really important places where now recruiters are popping up and passively posting about jobs, but also passively posting about their experience in this virtual environment. So there's no harm in even just writing a simple response or liking a recruiter's post on LinkedIn or asking a question, or if they leave their contact information, sending them a quick email. We always like to say here at Uber, and how we like to coach our interns, is that email is free, LinkedIn is free, and we use Slack here as our chat tool. We say Slack is free. And that means that there is no harm in asking a question. Sometimes there might be folks that are maybe a little bit too busy to get back to you right away. But if you don't ask, you'll never know. And so we definitely encourage you to become active on LinkedIn, not only when you're searching for a job, but when you're not searching for a job or leading up to a job search, because those are the types of connections that you can start to make really passively. And then, of course, using your Mesa network on top of attending these informational sessions, different sessions that they may be putting on or that other companies may be putting on externally. We definitely also encourage you to use your Mesa network. This is a great, great community. And there are a lot of folks here to support you and know about different opportunities and ways that you can engage with a recruiter or a recruiting team to get you that foot in the door, regardless of whether we're virtual or not. So the campus fair may not be coming to you, but you can have a career fair or a career recruiting experience right from your couch. And it's just about using the different tools and using the different communities that you have available to you to tap in and to really start engaging with those different posts. Much like an Instagram, much like a social media feed. I don't know, Instagram, TikTok, whatever your platform of choice is. But definitely engaging in it passively or actively is going to give you a return as well. Any questions about the job search before I move on to interviewing toolkit? I wanted to cover that really quickly before we go into the nitty-gritty about interviewing and interviewing virtually. I don't see any in chat, but I'll give it 2 seconds. All right, we'll move on forward. All right, so building your interview toolkit. There are a couple of things that I'm going to walk you through here. First are these really 4 key components about an interview toolkit and things that you can come prepared with before even knowing any interview questions or before asking your recruiter what you should prepare for. And these are things that are going to really help you excel and shine in an interview because they're things that you can come prepared with. The first being your elevator pitch, which I think is something that is so important and critical for everyone to practice. And truly, this is something that's about a 30 to 60 second sort of, we almost call it a commercial about you. And this is how you're going to inform recruiters or, if you're going to a virtual career fair or, what be it, any sort of interaction that you have with a company. This is going to be a great way to quickly explain your interest in the company, what your passions are, what your skill sets are, and sort of what makes you unique and what makes your background unique and why your resume or why you should be considered for a position at this company. So we'll go over a little bit more about the elevator pitch, how to practice this later on, but this is something that you should come prepared with because one of the first questions you'll always hear in an interview, regardless of whether or not it's virtual or in person, is tell me a little bit more about yourself. And having 60 seconds prepared and ready to go is something that's really helpful to you to make that first impression. Next is using the STAR method, as we like to call it at Uber, and you may have heard it elsewhere too. It's pretty popular, but it's in a way that you can answer questions and really provide your interviewer or your recruiter with a really comprehensive understanding and a really clear description of how you would walk through a situation or how you would respond to sort of those scenario-based questions that you get. So the STAR method stands for situation, task, action, and result. And we'll break that down for you a bit. So the situation is really just you repeating back the question or repeating back sort of the situation that would answer the question. So for example, one of the questions could be, what was a challenge that you faced in, an academic, in a group project or in your academic career? And what did you do to overcome that challenge in working in a group project? And so the situation then you would speak to is about, the group project that you worked in, but also, and sort of laying out what the challenge was. Next would be the task. So what sort of was expected for you in that particular task? So in using this group project example, we'll continue forward. You can lay out what the group project task was, why it was a group project, and why, and sort of what the dynamic of the group was, and why this was a particular challenge, or sort of where the challenge came from that then you're going to respond to. The action piece of the STAR method is what you did, and this is the most critical piece of STAR, what you did to resolve that conflict or what you did to help move the group project forward, and sort of your key role and what you'd want the employer to know that you're capable of when navigating challenge. And finally is the result piece. So what was the outcome here? Because of the action you took with this group project, how did you move it forward? So STAR, being able to lay this out in a really clean and very clear chronological order helps your interviewer not only understand sort of where you're coming from and really immerse themselves in your response, but it provides them with an understanding that you know exactly how to chronologically identify a problem or identify a question and then walk them through it to respond. This is transferable not only in a virtual environment, but right back in when we're in person and you're interviewing in the office. So I definitely recommend you committing STAR to memory and practicing with a couple of examples that you may have. There's lots of very typical interview questions, such as, tell me about a challenge that you experienced and have overcame in the workplace or at school. All the way to, tell me how you worked with data, for example, or how you worked with this to, produce different results. So knowing STAR and knowing a couple of examples that you can really clearly walk through the STAR method to any question is going to be really helpful for you. Next up is humble bragging. This is something that we like to really encourage and champion for our interns, for our recruiters, and then for our interviewers and our candidates, because this is a way for you to be able to celebrate your background and your extracurriculars and your journey, what makes you unique and important and special, and certainly someone who should be considered for this job, without blowing it over the top. But you should feel really comfortable and get comfortable practicing talking about yourself and talking about what makes you qualified for the job, or what makes you stand out and unique to your job, or to that particular job, or just in general as a candidate. I think something that is really important that you could always humble brag about is your involvement with Mesa. You're involved in this really great community where you're learning and you're engaging with other folks, and learning, all of these best practices to better yourself as future young professionals. And that's really something that's great to share. And so definitely take all the little things that you participate in, not only in your academic careers, but in and beyond, and try to think about ways that you can really try to speak to those in an interview. Nothing too small here. And then always ask questions. And there are two types of questions that I'm going to encourage you to build into your interview toolkit. One are the questions that you need to do your homework about. So come prepared with that company research that you've done, when you read the job description, or just, when you've learned a little bit more about a company blog, or you searched them on the news. Come prepared with a couple of questions to show that you're really interested and excited about the company. This shows your interviewers that you've taken some time to do your homework, and that you know what's going on in current day, or what's going on at the company, or what we value at a company. So that's going to help show your interviewer that you're really engaged, and that you're really interested in this job and in the company beyond just getting a job. And then second is the kind of questions that are going to come up through the situation and through the interview. And these are questions that you want to make sure you ask to clarify that you understand the question. So if an interviewer asks you a question and you do not know what they mean, don't try to take a stab at it before you can confirm. You're always allowed to clarify. You're always allowed to ask for hints if it's like a coding interview, for example. But this is another really great thing that showcases not only are you willing to take that moment to be vulnerable, to ask a question to make sure you understand how to best respond, but this shows your interviewer how you would work in a real life setting, where maybe you didn't understand the problem at work, and instead of just going and working and maybe coming up with the wrong answer, or going off and starting on a project and wasting time before you understood what the final result should be, you're asking for clarifying questions in real time. And this helps them not only understand a little bit more about you, and understand a little bit more about how you work. So if you're not doing that already, definitely make sure that you have these two levels of questions that you're prepared to ask. And then, of course, practice asking questions in your classes, in different ways that they come up, so that you feel confident asking these questions when it comes to an interview setting. The interviewer, always remember that they've been on the other side. They've been in your shoes before. So definitely asking those questions is something that it makes you relatable, and it's an important way for them to interact with you, and gives you a little bit more time to think about your answer and to answer really, really effectively for the question. Any questions in chat? Yeah.
Haley, we do have a question in the Q&A, and I think it's really a great question, and something that pertains to what you were talking about, and something we've heard a lot at Mesa. So somebody asked, how do we advertise ourselves efficiently? How do we make it so that we don't come off as pretentious or overconfident? And what are tips to remain interesting and intriguing, but not braggy? And we've definitely heard this before, and I think it's a great, great question.
That is a great question. Thank you so much for taking that time to ask that. I only had the chat open, so I'm glad that you called that out, Mindy. I appreciate it. So I definitely, this is something that comes up, and this also comes up for our interns too, who've already have their foot in the door, and for even new college grads who work at a company. I think there's a fine line between what is too much and then what is just enough. So what I would do is, or what I would recommend is to look at the job description and to remember to do your homework about the company and about the company culture. And I'm going to assume at this point that if you're advertising yourself, you have your foot in the door, you've talked to a recruiter, or maybe you're in an interview process. What I would recommend here is asking the recruiter a little bit more about the company culture. I would also, do that homework, learn a little bit more about, what the company values are, what things are really important. For example, there's a value here at Uber called, and it's act like an owner, or, we all act like owners. We all, we're sort of like, one of our values and how we achieve our larger mission is to take ownership of our projects. If you see something that's broken, you fix it. You don't ask or try to fix it, or, at least flag it to the right team so that you take ownership. So in doing that research and sort of understanding what the company is about, that can help you identify different things within your skill set, different things within, the out of school involvement, or, extracurriculars that you're involved in. And you can pick one or two that are really tailored to what the pulse of the company feels like, and then highlight those. And it's all about tone in the way that you present, how you, how you speak to these different qualifications that you may have, or the things that you're involved in. And I'll talk a little bit more about tone later on. That's in the second half of this. But I just wanted, I will speak to that now. So I think just curating based on a little bit of the company research will help you. Does that answer the question, at least enough for right now? And then we'll go through tone.
I think so.
Cool. Sounds great. Thank you. All right. I'm going to give you a quick snapshot of what an interview process looks like. I'll make sure that you have these slides because it's a lot of text. I don't expect you to be taking notes or reading. So I want to make sure that you have these. And this comes straight from an interview process guide that we provide all our candidates here at Uber. But I tailored it a little bit to make it a little bit more relatable for all companies. So typically what an interview process looks like, once you have that foot in the door, your application has been picked up and a recruiter is going to reach out to you, there's sort of 5 key steps that happen. And one is that you talk with a recruiter and they learn a little bit more about you, your qualifications, some of those humble brags, some of those situations, and they just get to know your background, and you get a chance to speak to your resume and to your cover letter. And then next you'll talk with a hiring manager or team. So this is now someone else before they're going to have you showcase your work, if that's something that is available, or part of your interview process, just so that they can see how you would mesh with the general team and see how you would be in goodness of fit for that particular role that's open. And then depending on the job, a lot of times, especially for tech interviews, we have a functional exercise, which means it's a coding exercise, or it's sort of a live coding project. I will use engineering as an example because that's what I primarily support in recruiting for. And so this is either a live coding exercise or something that is a take-home test, so that we can understand and have a baseline foundation of what your technical or functional expertise looks like. And this is a great way for us to be able to benchmark that. And then on the final step of your interview process is that there's a team interview, and it typically consists of about 3 to 5 panelists, where you'll speak with team members, you'll speak with different stakeholders or folks that are involved in your team or have a vested interest in what your work could do or could impact their work. So there will be just sort of a larger panel that's pulled together. Your recruiter will be a part of that panel or will help guide you through that panel. And then finally, you'll find out your hiring decision upon that sort of final interview. So this is what a typical timeline looks like, especially in tech. And this is exactly what our candidate journey looks like here at Uber. But remember, this is your example. And I do want to bring this back up again and make sure this is really clear, that your recruiter is your guide and they're your resource to help you know what to expect and to help prepare you for what to expect at each part of the journey. So I definitely recommend while you're virtual or while you're interviewing to make sure that you ask your recruiter questions, whether it's email, whether it's over a quick Zoom call. They'll always take the time to prepare their candidates, and our top recruiters really make sure that they build in the time, or that they invite you to the workshops so that you can, go through the technical interview in advance. They'll give you tips. They'll ask it, they'll relay your questions back to the team or hiring manager to show that you're an interested candidate. They're here to be your advocate. So we definitely recommend that throughout this entire process that you take, really, really use your recruiter as your guide and as sort of a tool and a resource to get you where you need to go. I also have just some general tips on how to prepare for your interview, what a skill-based interview is, how to structure answers to questions, etc. I'm going to make sure that you have a copy of these slides so that we can move on to the virtual portion of this session and make sure that we cover some of the virtual nuances. But I'll make sure that you have all of this information for you. We would put this in an appendix, but I wanted to show you it's here. Next up, we're going to talk about setting up for virtual success and what a virtual environment is. So a virtual environment is truly what you are participating in right now. It's what's on your screen as well as what is surrounding your screen. So for example, the room that I'm sitting in is part of my virtual environment, as well as my laptop. And then I have a desktop monitor as well, which is really helpful. But recruiting even from a phone can happen too. We just want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success in advance on whatever your virtual environment looks like. So a couple of key things that we really like to highlight and to share with our candidates is making sure that you download the interview platform ahead of time. You're going to know what that platform is, whether it's Zoom or Google Meet, or there's a couple of different video platforms, Blue Jeans. So your recruiter will let you know what that is or what those calls are going to be hosted on, and make sure that you have that downloaded and that you've tested it in advance, so that you don't fumble, on the day of. That's really, really helpful to make sure that it helps you feel confident and helps you feel like you're ready to go on the first day, much like you would maybe practice the time it would take you to get to the office for your interview ahead of an in-person interview. We also recommend pausing and muting all your notifications. I know that's really hard, but for like about an hour or however long an interview lasts, definitely make sure if you have Slack or if you have texts coming in on your screen, or if you have GChat open or any of those sort of any noises, we recommend muting it or turning your computer on Do Not Disturb, as well as your phone on Do Not Disturb, so you can make sure that you have your sole focus on your recruiter or on the interview panel that you're speaking with. Next, recommending using a virtual background or sitting against a blank wall. So right now this is Lake Tahoe, or a part of Lake Tahoe in the back. This is my virtual background of choice for the day. But this is something that we recommend that you do if you don't have a blank wall, like Mindy was sitting in front of a blank wall at the beginning of the session, because this helps really just set baseline expectations that the interviewer is here to evaluate you as a candidate. And so this takes away any background noise that they may see. It also helps to just make sure that you're setting a professional tone. Even if your background is just where you'd rather be instead of in your home in San Francisco looking at the rating outside, which is my current experience. And then finally, if you have headphones available with a microphone, I definitely encourage you to wear them or to make sure that you set up and test them, because it helps eliminate the background noise that is surrounding you so that you can be really engaged with your interviewer. We also recommend that if you forget to turn off one of your notifications, the notifications will just ring in your ears rather than ring on into the interview, which then could potentially distract your interview panelist as well. And then finally, one really, really great tip that we love to share is looking into the camera rather than looking at the screen. And I'm looking at speaker notes right now, so you can shift your eyes around. But if you look right into the camera, it comes off as showing eye contact, which is a really, really important part and really shows confidence in that interview when you're in person. So looking into your camera is a great way and a great trick that we like to use in our conference rooms and while we're on Zoom, so that you can show your interviewer that you're engaged, you're looking right at them, and that you're speaking to them as sort of as your main audience. I love that. I had a question from Justin in chat that I will answer really quickly. Let's see. I have a question about how long interview processes are. That's a great question. It definitely depends on the company, that whole long timeline. Justin, I'll stay on after the call and I'll speak to that. I can give you a couple of different timelines, but I want to make sure we get through the virtual success piece first, since that's like the bread and butter here. But that's a great question. Don't leave the call unless you have another call. I'll make sure you get an answer to that. Mindy had a question. If you cannot find an empty space or you only have busy backgrounds at home, should you bring attention to it or ignore it? That is a great question too. I think that is definitely an important thing. And that's something that we are all learning to embrace this experiment and lead with empathy as we navigate this virtual home experience. Obviously, we can't invite candidates into the office to interview right now because it's not safe. And so being from home, sometimes home environments can be quite quiet. Sometimes they can be busy. Sometimes you may need to take an interview from a coffee shop. So at that point, if you have, noise in the background, or if there are people moving around, I definitely recommend that you set up a virtual background on Zoom. I also know that if you're not using Zoom with BlueJeans or with Google Meet, you can blur the background. So at least if there are people moving around, the focus is just on you, so that it doesn't just distract or take away from you as a candidate. But you can also call that out as well. I think there's something very humanizing about that, and it's really transparent, unless it's something that you don't want to share. But if you feel comfortable saying like, oh, I'm taking an interview from my local coffee shop, or oh, I'm taking an interview but my family is home in the background, that's something that you can call out, and it really just is a relatable experience. We're all navigating this right now, so that's something that can really help you make a connection with your interviewer right away. I love that. Oh, perfect. Oh, okay. Thanks, Justin. Justin just popped up. And then Irving, great question. I always wondered whether or not you should do that. Seemed weird staring at the BD camera. I agree. It's definitely something that I have to get used to. I'm still getting used to it as well. But a pro tip on my final pro tip on setting up your virtual environment is that if you're going to be using speaker notes, or if you want to have quick things that you want to share, if you slide them on your screen right underneath where the little BD camera is, you can read from your notes and never look like you're taking your eyes away from that screen. So it's like your nice little virtual cheat sheet while still giving your interviewer that full attention. Love it. I love that tip too. You can always take a picture of a friend next to the camera hole and talk to them. That's a great tip, Mindy. I love it. Next up is your physical environment. So we talked a little bit more about this, but if you have to, leave home, or if you have a busy background, just making sure that you're in a bright room or have plenty of light to showcase, or, to make sure that you are visible. Having dark, having shadows cast on you, or having, just sitting in a really dark room helps your interviewer not be able to see how they can respond to your body language, and sort of see how you're showcasing your different skills, like, making eye contact, etc. It just makes you visible. If you are in need of notes, make sure, again, they're in that line of sight. Always come with a glass of water. I have mine right here. You're going to be talking a lot and you are going to get thirsty. So having that glass of water, just like in an in-person interview, folks would bring, they would ask you if you wanted a drink or water. Make sure that you have one prepared just so that you can take care of yourself. And it's a great time to pause before answering another question. And then finally, of course, relax, take a breath, and have fun with it. And then how should you dress? I know that that is a weird thing right now, and I'll be fully transparent with you. I'm wearing my house slippers and on the bottom, and you can't see them. And that's the kind of a fun perk of interviewing and working from home right now, is that you can be business on the top and casual on the bottom. And I think that, but your company website and your recruiter are going to help you learn how to dress for the interview. And it really depends on where you are interviewing. So for example, if you're interviewing at Uber, or if you're interviewing at another tech company, a lot of times we're pretty casual. Like you've heard about the tech hoodie, you've heard about, tech, swag and t-shirts. I wouldn't recommend wearing a t-shirt, but something that just is plain. It doesn't distract, not a lot of logos, just something that's really simple, but classic. Like right now I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt, and that would be more than sufficient for a casual interview. If you're interviewing at a place like a bank or, a finance company or somewhere where they do traditionally have a bit more, it's business casual or professional workwear is required in the workplace, we would definitely recommend, at least from the torso up, that you are dressed to match sort of the match what the vibe and sort of the culture, the dress code of the company is, so you can feel confident, prepared, and match sort of what their vibe and what they feel like. We definitely recommend that if you need to test out the outfit first too, just like you would before going into an interview, make sure that it's comfortable to sit in, it breathes, like you're able to move your hands around, or just be comfortable in front of a screen, and even prepare in front of your interview screen or a video camera or your webcam of sorts beforehand, so that you know how it appears on screen as well. And remember, again, your recruiter is going to be a great person to ask for sort of that background, the lighting, and how to dress. Dress as you wear a mullet. Business on the top, party on the bottom. Love it. That is perfect. Thank you, Irving. You're great. Tips for your virtual interview. Again, this comes straight from the Uber interview prep guide. You're going to get these slides. And so I want to make sure that you have them though. And this has really great Zoom information. We use Zoom as our interview platform. So this will give you a pro tip. It will take you from day one to a power user in no time. This will also help you set up a virtual background, and lots of different other tips about charging your devices, headphones, etc., to make sure that you're prepared on the day of. And then last but not least, practice makes perfect. I said this was the key takeaway if you were going to take anything away from this session. So different ways to practice this are, one, doing your homework. So making sure that you're reading through that job description and company research and taking notes and preparing your questions in advance. You can think about it, but there is something about going through the motions that helps you get faster about doing a quick scan of a company website, or taking quick notes, or thinking about 3 questions based on where you're going to look in a website. So making sure that you're doing that homework, but you're practicing doing your research is going to really help you. 2, we like to call it pitch perfect here at Uber. Practice, practice, practice your elevator pitch. So find a friend, find someone who you live with, find a Mesa community member, even just grab a mirror and practice your elevator pitch. So that 30 seconds of showcasing who you are, what you can bring to the company, your answer to tell me a little bit more about yourself, and practice it out loud. I know that seems silly, especially if it's in front of a mirror, but I promise you, I do this to this day. I practice it in front of a mirror, and you can even use your webcam to practice in front of a mirror. And this is a great way to share a little bit more about that. Next, celebrating your background, celebrating those humble brags. We're pretty casual around here at Uber. Oh, that's definitely not what that slide used to say. So celebrating your background, making sure that you're speaking a little bit more about yourself, and you can ask questions of your interviewer, as well as ask questions of your recruiter to get to know them. Obviously, you don't want to be like, where are you going? Or like what party or where you're at Friday night. But getting to know a little bit more about them personally, or making that personal connection is really helpful. And that's part of their job too. They want to get to know you as a person, as well as how you can perform in the job. So celebrating your background is a really great way to do that and to make that personal connection. So talking more about, talking about where you come from, or like where you're dialing in from, or what your favorite song for a Friday night would be as you roll into your weekend. And then finally, communication is key. So your impact not only depends on what you say, but how you say it. And the how you say it is really, really what's going to make a humble brag go from this is over the top and comes off arrogant to, wow, what a really unique and outstanding candidate who has showcased and highlighted their experiences. And I have a quick 1-minute video to show you, but I'm going to take one more question about accessories, jewelry, and makeup. That is, I think, a really great question. So I would say what I'm wearing is you definitely don't want to detract from you as a person. So it's almost imagining like you're going to, you know, I don't know, you're getting your picture taken for school, like picture day for school. Something that's going to show off you as a person, but not going to detract or distract from your answers. So I would recommend if you wear jewelry to keep it simple. If you have jewelry that you wear permanently or things that if you like to wear a big statement, you know, one statement is okay. I think multiple would be a little bit too much, especially because you only have a 12 to 14 inch screen to make an impression while you're virtual versus a really, really large screen or a whole conference room. So I would definitely recommend to keep it really simple, to keep it professional, but also you can ask your recruiter those questions too. So if there's a really loud, bold company, you can be yourself, and just making sure that you're matching or aligning with sort of the dress code of the company. So again, if it's a bank, I would recommend perhaps not wearing like, you know, a ton of, you know, like huge earrings, like 5 different necklaces, a whole get up. But if it's somewhere like Uber or a tech company or somewhere, you know, where it's a little bit more casual, it's definitely open to you, just as long as you're making sure that you're highlighting yourself and making sure that you are able to be visible and doesn't detract from you or your responses. It's a great question. And I'm going to give you this final little piece about this tone and how to communicate with a communication breakdown infographic. So this showcases a little bit about sort of the breakdown of different types of communication and why it's really crucial and important to practice. So the element example is, you know, your tone of voice, how you would share that humble brag. When we're over the phone or over Zoom, that's 55% of your impact. So if you're going to come into an interview and say, you know, like, and I'm like so good at this, and I can't believe like I just like, I'm the best at coding at my whole school. That's going to come off a lot different than I'm really great. You know, I'm a top performer in my program at my school. You know, I've won these different awards or I've won like X award for, you know, coding, or I participated and won this hackathon or something like that. Body language is also really important. Practicing I talk with my hands. That's something that everyone knows about me at Uber, and you've all seen a lot today. But body language, leaning into your screen a little bit, can help you look like you're really engaged and help you mimic what an in-person conversation looks like. And then verbiage, so what you actually say, the length and extent of your vocabulary doesn't need to be expansive. It's only 7% of our overall impact. Truly, it is your tone and your body language that's going to help set you apart as you communicate. And I know that I'm already over time 1 minute, but I think that this is a really great way to speak to this sort of experience or what tone could look like. So I'm going to show you this 1 minute clip if everyone's okay with that. I don't know if my audio is going to work actually. So give me a quick, come off mute and let me know if the audio works for you. Can you hear that?
I do not hear it.
Oh no, hold on.
What you can do is also share the link in the chat. And so
I've got it. All right, okay. Let's try this. New screen share.
Way back. Is this my car? State Farm knows that.
We get it?
Yes.
Fantastic.
For every one of those moments, this is ridiculous. There's one of these.
Is this my car? What? This is ridiculous.
This can't be happening.
This can't be happening.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Shut up.
Shut up.
Ah!
That's why State Farm is there.
What a day.
with car insurance for when things go wrong.
What a day!
But also here with car loans to help life go right. State Farm.
Call you back.
All right. So that's a 30-second ad. I already had it. I thought it was a minute, but it plays twice. So the differences in tone there are very obvious. It's a silly way to, sort of explore that and what that looks like. But it's really, really important to practice how your tone is when you're communicating different qualities about yourself. When you're highlighting, your humble bragging, your elevator pitching, your tone is going to help you stand apart from other candidates, even if you said identical phrases. And then last but not least, I know that I mentioned we're now nearing the very, very end. I know that we talked a lot about your recruiter being your guide. We talked about practicing. So maybe if there's two things you're going to take away today, one is that practice is very key. Two is that I'm technically a recruiter, and I'm going to be someone who is a foot in the door and someone who is open and available for questions. So I've left my my Uber contact information on this slide. And if you would like to reach out and ask me a question or follow up on this session, I am happy to connect with you. So please feel free if you want to take that down. It has been such a pleasure chatting with all of you. I know we only have a couple minutes left before 4:05, but I am happy to take questions at this time. So I'll stop sharing my screen and people can pop them in chat, or you can come off mute and share live with me.
So thank you so much to Haley. I know we are over time, but I, of course, want to offer people I'm happy to take you off mute if you'd like. I'm going to do that now. So thank you so much. I think a lot of people are jumping off. I just want to tell a couple things. I submitted a survey form in the chat, so please go ahead and take our survey. I will, of course, connect with you on Jumpstart. To all the students, if you have any additional questions or want to get in touch with Haley and didn't grab her contact information. And just a reminder that our interview sessions are next week. And lastly, we have a Mesa alumni going into space tomorrow. We're super excited. Victor Glover is launching tomorrow as the pilot of the new launch tomorrow through SpaceX and NASA. So be sure to check that out as he's a very proud Mesa alum. So make sure to look for him on the local news, and that's all. And thank you again to Haley for an awesome session.
Thank you. And thank you all so much. I know that some of you hopped off right at 4. I thought I would for a second, I thought I had until 4:05, my mistake, but thank you all so much. It's so great to meet all of you, even just virtually through chat. Feel free to reach out, connect with me, and I'll make sure that Mindy has these slides and all the different resources that I've linked into them so that you can take this session and then build upon it. And best of luck in your recruiting searches. Really appreciate you taking the time, and I hope this was helpful for you today. Enjoy your Fridays.
Thank you.
Thank you.